Hey guys, Chris Clothier here with another episode of the Grind Podcast coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee. And if you happen to be watching me on video, I look different. I can tell it's not the fresh haircut. It's not the new. I got a different shirt on than the first 29 episodes. This is different for another reason. And if you're listening to me on the podcast and driving, don't do this while driving, but go check out the YouTube channel so you can see what it is I'm talking about. It's going to be important. The visual today is important, and I'm using props. There are props that are going to be involved in today's podcast, and you really need to get the full effect by listening. But the point of it, the point of today's podcast, I think that everyone out there is going to love this one because it's all about real estate. It's all about turnkey real estate, and it's an important lesson to learn, not just about turnkey, but about real estate investing in general. And some of you will find a really important life lesson in this because I've learned my lesson as I'm recording and coming to you live from my tiny desk. And why am I positioned at a tiny desk? You know, if you're watching there on the video, you can see that I'm just about 1.5 feet off the floor, maybe at the most in my chair. And I should be up higher. I think I did something like this a couple weeks ago. I'm not really sure. I don't know if I'd already explained it to you, but this is a little piece of my desk, and these buttons represent desk goes higher and desk goes lower. And unfortunately, when I push that higher button, no matter how I push it, nothing happens. And you know, if you've been around me for a while, if you watch these videos, or if you even know me, period, that the desk didn't always do this. It wasn't always this way. And that's where the lesson lies in how I'm going to tie back to real estate. So let me tell you what happened first and then kind of how it works. So most of us probably think, especially if the listeners are men, that we can do a lot of things and that guidance is something that is not always needed or necessary. Directions are something that we can generally do without, that there's this hubris that we can do a lot of things just because we know, like we generally know. And when it came to my desk, and we talked about the chaos theory and the way I operate in chaos, the fact that I need change constantly, well, I decided without directions or without guidance that I would take my desk apart. And my desk is one of these that goes up and down with a little button. And so I thought in my brilliant brain that because a desk is just a piece of wood, a couple of legs, there's nuts and bolts. I don't know how it all goes together, but I do know that the nut holds it together. The bolt, keeps it from moving. All these kinds of basics, right? These are the basics. And I knew that if I could figure out how to unscrew everything, I could probably figure out how to put it back together. I cut my desk in half is a good way to put it. I took the L off and I put it back together. I took 3 legs and brought it down to 2 legs. Everything's supposed to go up and down. I plugged it all back in and poof, my desk sunk to this level. And I've gone online. I've watched all the YouTube videos. I've watched everything I can to figure out how to correct my mistakes. And there really is no correcting stupidity because that's where I am right now. That I decided that without directions or guidance, I would fix my fairly expensive desk, right? I mean, it's electronic. It's supposed to go up and down on its own. So I jumped in. I decided to redo this myself. And now I'm left with what we are referencing a tiny desk. This is not a good long-term solution for me. This is going to be an issue, and it's going to be an issue rather quickly. So I now have cost myself money. I now am in the process of getting myself a new desk. So I took a perfectly good desk and, for lack of a better way to put it, I broke it. And I broke a perfectly good desk that worked perfectly. And I didn't bother to get an expert involved. I didn't bother to get somebody that knew what they were doing involved. I just DIY'd it. I did it myself. And now I end up with, as I said, a tiny desk coming to you on video where my head is like, even with the window behind me. And if you're used to watching me, I'm usually up about here and now I'm down about here. So that is what it is. How does that reference into real estate? How can I twist that story and make it relatable to real estate investing? Well, like this. I received an email this morning from one of my team in our portfolio department, and he was explaining to me that he has a client who has multiple houses with us, but they really want to do this on their own. And by this, I mean they want to be in the passive real estate investing environment, but they want to be more involved. They want to go and buy their own house and then give it to us to manage, which is perfectly fine, not a problem. I see it constantly out there in, online and through all the forums where people, for lack of a better way to put it, they want to get started in real estate and they want to do it themselves. And generally, it comes down to one basic reason, and it is because there's this belief that I can do it less expensively, I can save money, perhaps I can force greater upside into my investment because I own it at a lower price, or what have you. It generally always revolves around earning a higher return, saving money, some form or fashion. My investment is better because I'm not paying the middleman. I'm not paying somebody else to do it. And I want you to understand before I go any further, I'm not offended by this at all. I was in this boat. I have done this. If you've watched and listened to any of my story, you've seen that I lost a ton of money because I thought I knew what I was doing. I tried to cut out everyone else. I tried to be the go it alone, do it yourselfer kind of guy, and I lost. You would think, and I will tell you, I've done this enough throughout my life that I would have known better than to take my desk apart, but I didn't. I still have not learned my lesson apparently. And I went about this on my own without a plan, a general belief in my understanding. Now let's talk about real estate. Real estate's pretty simple, right? You buy a house. It's not incredibly difficult, complicated maybe in some ways, but it's not. I mean, everybody believes that they can buy a house. There's nothing terribly difficult about that. There's a general belief that if some work is needed, I can just hire a contractor to do it. I can get the work done. Okay, again, I don't think that's too outlandish. Of course, absolutely. And then on the flip side, whether somebody's asking me to manage it or someone else, there's a general belief that that's what you do on the end. All right, so I go and I buy a house and then I hire somebody to fix it and do the work that needs to be done, and then I hire somebody to manage it for me. It's a pretty simple process. Well, I can tell you this much from the turnkey realm and the way I try and discuss it with investors that want to do this type of passive investing. What I mean by passive investing is they're not going to actively manage the property. All right, they're actively finding it. They're maybe actively handling some of the renovation or actively hiring somebody else to handle the renovation, and then they are actively hiring a management company and then backing out. The reason we started the turnkey company, the turnkey process to begin with, was while it's not complicated, it's the same as thinking about, there's nuts and there's bolts and you just kind of put everything together and you plug it in and everything works, and things don't always come out that way. With real estate, there are knowing what price to pay for a house, understanding what is happening, what subtle nuances are going on within a particular market. Is it better to buy in the 900 block of a street versus the 700 and below block of a street? That type of stuff. There are subtle nuances to buying houses. And then there's also this thing called buying power, where if you are doing one job, one time, you're buying one house, you lack buying power. Your money may be good, your offer may be golden, but you're an unknown entity. You don't do this very often. You don't have reputational pull. You don't have, using that word again, a reputation for actually closing. You're just, again, a contract, just another piece of paper that comes across. There's no heft to what it is you're trying to do. The same goes for, hey, I'm just going to hire a contractor. Anybody can hire a contractor, 100% absolutely. Open up the Yellow Pages, if they even exist anymore. I'm not sure Yellow Pages exist anymore. Go online and you look up, the general contractors, and you begin making phone calls and you hire a general contractor. But again, you lack buying power. One job done one time doesn't have the same buying power as one job this week that when it's completed, there's another job waiting to start, that when it's completed, there's another job waiting to start, that when it's completed, there's two jobs waiting. This ability for a contractor to see that there is a longevity to this relationship. Someone who is constantly keeping a contractor busy will, just by the very nature of what they're doing, drive the price down. Just by the very nature of the contractor's willingness to get a hold of that consistency of work, it's going to drive the price down. So the buying power is greater for those that are doing more volume. That's a hindrance to the one-off investor that wants to do it themselves. The same goes for materials, and all the way down through every piece of labor, for whether it's the plumber or the electrician or the tile man or the flooring company, if it's the general painter, if it's the clean out crew, if it's the maintenance crew, if it's the people that come in and cut the lawns. I mean, every single step of the way, every little thing that needs to be done to get a property to its peak, to its top level, to perform at its best, requires a relationship. And every relationship requires buying power. And the less buying power you have, the higher the price is going to be. So ultimately, if someone's going to do it yourself in real estate, understanding that, barring doing something on a creative side, so creating the lead yourself, mailing out mailers, which in and of itself is work and money, to get people to call you with their house so you can buy it super, super, super discounted. Outside of that, if you're buying on the MLS, you have no buying power. You're probably paying more than that big bulk company that's doing it turnkey. If you happen to win a deal, you paid more than the other companies would have paid. You paid more than they were willing to pay. So you're already on the downside, we'll call it. Renovations that need to be done. Not knowing what renovations need to be done in order to maximize not only the income, so in order to get the highest rent, but also to hold down deferred maintenance, to hold down CapEx issues that will come up in the future. The ability to think and know that, hey, I need to do this now to save myself money later. That's something that it's very difficult for one-off investors to know. Whereas turnkey companies, and I'm gonna put a disclaimer at the very end of this about when I say turnkey, but when you're buying from a company that does this at a high level or with more consistency, they know, they understand, they're able to make sure the right work is done to maximize the profit. And they also are able to get everything done that you would be doing out of the white pages cheaper, less expensive. So when the end product arrives, turnkey company versus a do-it-yourselfer, the turnkey company is going to be in a property less expensive almost every time. And if they're not, it's because they're a bad operator. I mean, the economics are set up for that to happen. Lastly, that's where that nexus comes. So that's where the turnkey company is going to charge for their services. And they may very well charge right up to where you as an individual investor would be had you done it all yourself, because you don't have the ability to drive the price down. You don't have the ability to drive the work cost and labor cost and material cost down like a bulk company does. And then lastly, when it comes to the management side, like us in particular, I'll manage the right property in the right location that is renovated to the right level for just about anybody, provided that we fit as, customer and service provider. We're happy to manage the right houses in the right locations that are fixed to the right level. But I'm not willing to manage properties that are in areas that I don't go. I'm not interested in managing properties that have deferred maintenance, where an owner has either cut corners to save money or is just, doesn't think it's important to do certain things that we think is important. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not going to choose to manage it. Somebody else may. The real point I'm trying to drive home here is that unless you are an expert and want this to be your expert job and the thing that you're willing to put the time and effort into learning, very often going with a passive, I'm going to use the word turnkey here, route is going to be a better investment than trying to do it yourself. Had I brought my team in, the team that built my desk for me originally when I got it, most likely I'd have a normal desk right now that'd be rising and lowering just the way it's supposed to be. I could pay that team for having done that for me. It would have cost me, a little bit of money, and I wouldn't have to buy a new desk. I would have saved myself money in the long run had I paid somebody else to do it. But I jumped out there and decided to do it myself, and I've ended up costing myself money. I don't know that every investor always sees it that way. I don't know that investors will always be willing to admit that to themselves, on the back end of a product. But I'm here to tell you that after years and years of doing this, that a properly set up company with the right systems and processes and the buying power is going to be able to deliver a superior product for the same price every single day of the week compared to an investor that wants to do it yourself. That's something that whatever savings you think you will force into by cutting the profit off of the turnkey company, you will end up paying to the home seller and to the vendors in the middle, because they're giving that bulk buyer a much better price than what you're getting. That's just kind of a economics 101. Let me say this real quick. I said I'd put a little caveat on the back of this thing about turnkey. So very quickly, guys, it's almost impossible today to take one turnkey property from one company and a turnkey property from another and compare them side by side as two equals. The word has generally a specific meaning to most buyers, and it's pretty much the same, but it has a very different meaning to most providers. Today, there are companies out there that call themselves turnkey, and they don't buy a single house. They don't renovate anything. They don't manage. All they do is connect buyers to sellers. They end up, instead of selling houses to investors, they sell investors to providers. There's also companies out there that believe that, look, I'm all for deferred maintenance. Defer as much maintenance as you can. Keep your price super low going in. Put those expenses way down the line. Just buy it super cheap. I happen to think that that's a poor way of investing, but that doesn't mean that I'm right 100% of the time. So it's really important that you don't fixate and focus on the word turnkey, but you really pay attention to buying something passively and using someone else's buying power to drive the best deal you can get, versus trying to do it yourself and thinking that you're going to be able to force those savings and drive that price down just on your own. It's virtually impossible to beat the prices of the bulk companies, many of which that sell turnkey like we do. So with that, maybe, although doubtfully with today's crunch in the supply chain, so I'll just say soon, I'll be coming to you from a new desk. Until then, you may see me at Tiny Desk for a little while. I will do my best to keep bringing good content to you until we talk again next weekend, guys, or next Friday, whatever day it is you listen to the podcast. I urge you, commit to the grind, keep it up. Thank you so much for all the support you're showing us, all the love you're giving us on social media, all the shares, whatever questions, comments, even thumbs up that you send me. I love it. I really do appreciate it. And look, until then, we'll talk. All right, you guys commit to the grind. Take care.